Our top story tonight is about Ukraine. Its war with Russia has reached a bad place. After nearly 3 years of relentless Russian assaults, the front line of this war-torn country is on the brink of collapse. Daily, Ukrainian forces are losing ground to Russian attacks. Servicemen are breaking ranks over calls to continue fighting, and soldiers are abandoning the front lines. Now, facing setbacks, desertions, and the prospect of a potential settlement with Russia that could be influenced by Donald Trump, Ukraine has decided to hold its military commanders accountable. In the latest developments, 2 generals and a colonel have been held responsible for the loss of territory in eastern Ukraine, areas that were captured by Russian forces last spring. This action comes as public pressure mounts in Ukraine against its military leadership. Ukraine Security Service, known as the SBU, announced that the 3 former commanders, 2 generals and 1 colonel, have been accused of failing to protect Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine from the advances of Russian forces. The SBU did not disclose the names of those detained, but shared their ranks in the units they commanded at the time. The former Ukrainian commanders are accused of failing to build adequate fortifications and properly equip defense positions. Moreover, they're charged with making other mistakes that led to Russia seizing a significant portion of Ukrainian territory where fierce fighting is currently underway. As mentioned earlier, their arrests come amid growing public pressure for action against commanders seen as incompetent or careless. Desertions have been rising in the Ukrainian army, with soldiers fleeing from the war. In fact, those who leave their units without permission often cite disagreements with their commanders as the key reason for their departure. The unnamed Ukrainian colonel is under scrutiny for the actions of 12 soldiers in his battalion who reportedly left their posts. Separately, the commander of Ukraine's 155th Brigade has been arrested because a large number of his brigade members went absent without leave. This at a time when Ukraine was already going through a manpower shortage amid fierce fighting with the Russians. But that's not all. Ukraine is also grappling with corruption within its military ranks. Time and again, reports have surfaced of widespread bribery among military officials, especially medical commissioners, who have the authority to grant draft exemptions. The SBU announced the arrest of the country's chief military psychiatrist, revealing that he had accumulated over $1 million since the onset of the war. His assets include several properties and 4 BMWs. The commanders accused of crimes could face prison sentences of up to 10 years, with the SBU indicating its intention to seek pre-trial detention for those arrested as a preventive measure. We're not surprised. Just look at the number of news reports talking about low morale among Ukrainian soldiers. There's also been an increase in reports of troops either fleeing the conflict or going completely absent without official leave. Many soldiers have expressed that their commanding officers are sending them into situations where their chances of survival are minimal. A term often used to explain this situation is called meat grinder. Meat grinder, a term that has become synonymous with Ukraine war. Meanwhile, during the World Economic Forum in Davos, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a pitch for Europe, asking it to remain strong and united amidst changing US leadership.
And we need a united European security and defense policy, and all European countries must be willing to spend as much on security as it truly needed, not just as much they have gotten used to during years of neglect. If it takes 5% of GDP to cover defense, then so be it.
Now, that speech came following the swearing in of Donald Trump as US president. Remember, Trump has been pushing for settlement of the Ukraine war. He has been extremely critical of former President Biden for supplying military aid to Ukraine. Let's not forget his pre-poll promise of ending the Ukraine war. Just yesterday, he took an unusually critical stance on the Kremlin, threatening Russia with sanctions if it refuses to engage in talks on settling the Ukraine war. Trump has said he would meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the details are being arranged for the same. During a press briefing, he said, and I'm quoting here, "The war between Ukraine and Russia should have never started." When reminded that he had promised to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours of being in office, he jokingly replied, I'm quoting again, "I have another half day left. We'll see. We want to get it done." As far as Ukraine is concerned, Trump said Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has told him he wants to make a deal. Recent comments from Kyiv have showed that they are open to diplomacy provided it creates a sustainable end to the war. And Zelensky had welcomed Trump's inauguration, calling the US president a strong man. But Trump's assertion that he wants to meet Putin suggests Trump is confident that he may be able to forge a diplomatic path. In fact, his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has also said that Trump will begin working on a ceasefire agreement for Ukraine, quote-unquote, almost immediately. Speaking to reporters soon after being confirmed by the Senate, the new U.S. Secretary of State said that Ukraine will be the top priority for Trump and that the war needs to end. Rubio insisted that both Ukraine and Russia will have to concede something as part of any deal, without elaborating on what such concessions would look like. Question is, either side's in any mood to concede? We'll have to wait and watch. For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.